both just have enormous respect for each other.
What gladiator has that big striped spear at the neck?
Look, the judges are nodding. Even the Egyptian judges are impressed.
Until recently, you claimed that the Earth revolved around the sun.
Welcome to History Bites. I'm Rick Green. In 1897, a theatrical agent named Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, a novel that has scared horror fans for generations. But did you know that Stoker's character was based on a real Dracula who lived some 500 years ago? Oh, you did? Well, the real Dracula wasn't actually a vampire. He was prince of the small Balkan country of Wallachia, which is now part of Romania. They called Vlad the Impaler because of the gruesome way he killed people. So, let's go back to the year 1476. Prince Dracula is back on the throne of Wallachia for the third time, and he ain't scared of nothing. Not crosses, not garlic, not even bad publicity on television.
This is 2020, and I'm Barbara Walterski.
And I'm Hugh Downatcha. Tonight,
we'll take an in-depth look at the man who stuck it to so many for so long, and now, after a 14-year imprisonment, is back on the throne of Wallachia. Madman, hero, monster, regular guy with just one widow obsession. These terms have all been used to describe Vlad the Impaler, Dracula. Vlad, are you happy to be back?
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how good it feels, huh? 14 years away, it gives a man a chance to think about things and who he might hammer those things into if he ever made it back.
You've been called Vlad the Impaler, the Impaler Prince, Captain Impero. What is this fascination you have with this tactic?
I just want to say that in this business, there's a real tendency to be pigeonholed, okay? People see you in one massacre trying something a little different, and the next thing you know, you're branded for life. Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. I mean, I don't pretend that I don't have a soft spot for impaling, but I mean, hey, I burn people, I boil them.
I don't know, he certainly isn't friendly to some women. Impaling maidens who lose their virginity, unchaste widows, adulterous wives, fat chicks. I mean, as usual, women are getting the short end of the stick. Except now it's a much longer stick.
No, I don't agree with his methods, but I have been preparing myself for the possibility of his return. Training myself, inch by inch. Here, let me show you.
How can anyone condone those kinds of methods? Whatever happened to skinning and strangulation and boiling a man alive? Those were the traditions this country was built on. It's been years since I've seen a good boiling.
Hold that.
As far as I am concerned, Vlad is old news.
Are you forgetting the numbers of soldiers he has? Like 20,000 Turks at Turgo Vista?
That was 14 years ago. He can't snap his fingers and come back like that. I know. He'll be rusty. I doubt if he will ever achieve that level of performance again.
Okay, great. So you won't mind if the Impaler Prince is watching at home, seeing your name at the bottom of the screen, Bayzad of Ankara.
No, get that off! Take that off the screen!
It doesn't matter how much Dracula may have lost in his hiatus. It doesn't matter how much we may dislike him. You know, the fact is the Ottoman Empire is the most powerful nation on the earth, and it doesn't matter how much we may dislike this Dracula character. You know, we find that if we truly look within ourselves, that we will realize that we actually love him dearly.
Dracula earned the nickname Impaler by putting the stake to many people. But the vast majority of his victims were either Turks or his nation's own nobility, the boyars. You see, these not-so-noble boyars had betrayed his father and buried his brother alive before Vlad was prince. So, once he got the top job, he quickly went to work to stick it to them.
I mean, most of the guys he gives it to are them rich ones who boss us little guys around, like those high and mighty boyars, or them big-shot merchants. I can't count the number of times I wanted to tell my boss to take his job and shove it. This way I feel like I did.
I mean, the corruption of the boyars has disappeared. right around the same time all the boyars disappeared. And crime is virtually non-existent. We certainly don't have any repeat offenders.
Query, your main thrust has been the impaling stake. Why do you think that is?
You know, I don't know, Barbara. The wooden stake, the horses we tie men's legs to, it's sort of a more a love of nature, maybe. Maybe it's my desire to see a crime-free society. Maybe it's the fact that when I was held hostage by the Turks as a boy, the guards commonly loosened me up with an artificial wooden phallus before they had their way with me. Who can say why we do the things we do?
Roll, Frida. 10 more questions. Each one you get right brings you closer to the grand prize of being a millionaire, a wealthy person, a noble, a boyar. Are you excited?
You bet.
Although, I guess you didn't figure Prince Vlad would be back on the throne when you signed up to be on the show. He's a boyar butcherer. Make the rich pay. Up the old wazoo.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
All right, here we go for 1,000 coins. How many steps lead up to Prince Vlad's magnificent fortress? Is it 13, 39, 100, or 1,400?
I'd like to phone a friend, Regis. I'll phone my friend Yorgi. He's a stonemason. He knows a lot about steps.
All right, could we connect to Frida's friend Yorgi?
Hello?
Hello, this is Regis Filchescu of Who Wants to Be a Boyar.
Oh, hi.
I want to know if you'd like to help out your friend Frida here. She has a question for you. Frida, you have 30 seconds.
Hi, Frida. What?
How many steps lead up to Prince Vlad's fortress? Is it 13, 39, 100, or 1,400? I could become a boyar if I get it right.
39 sounds right to me, Frida.
You sure?
Well, I am a stone builder myself, and my father helped build that fortress. And he used to talk a lot about that fortress. So yes, I'm sure.
What's your answer, Frida?
I'm going to say 1,400 steps, and that's my final answer.
And you're right! Well done!
Yorgi!
There is no denying that Wallachia under Prince Dracula fared very well economically.
Crime was down, trade was up, unemployment was virtually eliminated, not to mention improvements in healthcare.
Amazing. How did you accomplish so much?
Well, much of it was due to my welfare reform program.
Can you explain?
I prepared a tremendous feast for all the vagabonds of Turgovista, the old and the ill and the lame and the poor and the blind, and had them all in the central dining hall. And we gave them some clothes, and we gave them drink, finest wines, as much as they wanted. It was...
That sounds truly wonderful.
Then we locked all the doors and burned down the building.
You're right! What an incredible winning streak you're on, Frida. 98% of the audience was sure it was answer D. You picked answer A, and you were right again. I guess they figured better you than them. All right, only one question away from being a boyar.
Had Vlad truly been rehabilitated during his incarceration in Hungary? I spoke with Stephen, the security guard, who was in charge of Vlad during his imprisonment.
Well, whenever he was able to capture a small mouse or a bird up there in his cell, he'd make these cute little steaks, almost like toothpicks, and he'd shish kebab them with it. On a good day, I'd go up there and I'd see maybe a dozen of them all laid out by his window. I guess you don't stay good at anything without practice.
You still have a lifeline. We could eliminate 2 of the wrong answers for you.
No lifeline. I'm sure it's A, so I'll say D.
Final answer?
It will be if I get it right.
Oh, I'm sorry. The correct answer is... What a good sport.
When it comes to improving his personal or national situation, he's not going to let little things like morality get in the way, no. Just look at how he treated the gypsies.
Look, I admit I'm a little hard on the gypsies, but how else can you treat cannibals,
Isn't it true that the only instance of cannibalism that gypsies are guilty of occurred when you forced them to eat one of their own leaders after you boiled him?
Hey, they did it. I only forced them. Oh, bunch of sickos. At least he was cooked, huh? I'm telling you, the world is so full of sickos.
When we return, Justice Dracula style. Ow. Back in 15th century Wallachia, under the newly reinstalled leadership of Count Dracula, honesty was definitely the best policy. And so was hard work, because the price of dishonesty or laziness was death. Bad death. Dracula death. To make sure people were obeying his Draculonian laws, Vlad sometimes even roamed the countryside, meting out his own brand of justice. Great. A monster who makes house calls.
Real people, real cases, real blood. Judge Judy Shineland passes judgment using all the same laws and powers as Prince Vlad Dracula.
Well, I've looked over both your depositions. Now, Mr. Harding, you say that you sold some chickens to Mrs. Tansley here for an agreed-upon price of 3 silver pieces each.
Your Honor, you did not see those chickens. I've seen starlings with bigger...
Am I talking to you?
No, no,
You'll
but...
get your turn, ma'am. Now, did she pay you the agreed-upon price?
No, she did not, Your Honor. There were 2 pieces of silver less in the bag than there should have been. She cheated me out of my chicken change.
Okay. Now you, ma'am, Mrs. Tansley, you say there was something wrong with these chickens.
Yes, they were very skinny.
Skinny chickens, eh? Do you have any proof they were skinny?
Well, I did some drawings of the chickens.
Who drew these? You or the chicken?
What about kids who are fans of the joust and just want to emulate their heroes?
Okay, that's a good question, okay? You kids at home, listen up. You can't be practicing the joust with lance and shield. It's too dangerous. You'll end up like those dishonest vegetable merchants in Prince Dracula's court. Shish kebab. I tell you, you want to practice for the big game with no one getting killed? Get yourself some quarterstaffs.
Actually, the correct plural is quarterstaves.
Oh, come on, big deal. I'm trying to teach these kids something about sports, and you're giving them a grammar lesson. Come on. All right, so you're walking across a river along a fallen log, eh, kids? And you see someone coming the other way? That's the time to whip out your quarterstaff and start whacking.
Last night in the tavern, I heard you mention how you hardly fed them.
You? I didn't...
What, you didn't see me there? If Prince Vlad can travel around the country in disguise in order to check upon his people, so can I. You, Mrs. Tansley, were dishonest in your payments. And since dishonesty is a capital offense, the penalty will be impalement tomorrow. You, Mr. Harding, were lazy, which is also a capital offense, in addition to being dishonest, so you will be burned, then impaled.
Well, I'm a little disappointed, to be sure, but at least I'm not getting burned and impaled.
Oh, let's set it on television, you said. Oh, it'll be fun, you said.
Hey, it wasn't easy being the ruler of Wallachia in the 1400s. On the one border, you had Hungarians who were sworn crusaders against the Turkish Muslims of the Ottoman Empire. And on the other side were the Turks, in a perpetual state of holy war against the Christians. Trapped in the middle, Count Dracula had to ally himself with one of the 2 superpowers, and he chose the Hungarians, not because he liked them, but because he hated the Turks more.
One of the problems in getting an independent opinion of Prince Dracula is that most of the recipients of his brutality are unable to respond to interview requests. 2 exceptions are Awi and Osman, 2 Turkish ambassadors who arrived in the prince's court some 18 years ago.
We were on a diplomatic visit to Wallachia when we were ushered into the prince's court, and Dracula asks us to remove our Phrygian caps.
And did you remove your Phrygian caps?
Phrygian. We could not. It goes against the honor of our fathers.
Yes, I don't know.
And did Dracula respect your traditional beliefs?
Yes and no.
No.
Well, he allowed us to keep our hats on, but in order to make it easier for us to observe our obligations at all times, he nailed them to our heads.
Nailed. Bang, bang, bang,
boom.
Bang.
Goodness, that's horrible.
Yes, yeah. It
No
makes
kidding.
it very difficult to get a good haircut, and also it does not match most of my nice suits.
Let's go to our next caller. Zaya, what's your question?
Hi, yeah. My son is 8 years old, so we're getting him circumcised, and we're really concerned about the evil eye.
Of course you are. You want to take every precaution at a time like this. Obviously, you want to avoid anything that's going to attract attention, but how far do you go? In the eastern provinces, some families dress their boys in female clothes and ornaments, and cover their faces with handkerchiefs to avoid the gaze of the eye.
Oh, you know those eastern provinces always have to be different.
Yeah. I think that's a little much if you're supposed to be entering manhood. I recommend some tiny black seeds in the boy's sheets and the horns of a stag beetle around his neck. They should do the trick.
Yep.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense.
The now infamous Forest of the Impaled. We spoke with General Ahmed, a commander in the Turkish army of 1462.
We had Dracula on the run. His troops were outnumbered 3-1. And he had our glorious leader, Mehmed II, the man who conquered Constantinople, coming after him. And Mehmed wasn't going to be scared by a small-time operator like Dracula. But then we got to Tirgovista, and we saw all those bodies. There must have been 20,000 of them, all with spikes. Mehmed just looked out at this forest of corpses and he says, never forget this as long as I live, he says, yuck. Just like that, he says, yuck. And he turned and he headed home. Didn't have the stomach for that kind of thing. Couldn't handle Italian food either.
Some of your critics say you're too angry, too serious, too sadistic and psychotic, to weed a nation.
You know what? I'm funny. I have a great sense of humor. If I wasn't funny, could I tell a story like this? Okay, listen to this. It was St. Bartholomew's Day in Brasov 16 years ago. Okay, and we just finished this very long afternoon. Brutal, really. Something like 30,000 people impaled. I was exhausted. Anyway, I'm always hungry after a hard day's work, so I set up this really nice feast among the little forest of corpses I got going there, and I decide I'm going to invite some of the boyars to join me for dinner. So, okay, we're just starting the meal, and I notice this one boyar is holding his nose as he eats, and I say, okay, hey, are you okay? And he says, it's the smell of the clotting blood and the emptying bowels. So I say, oh, is that bothering you? Would you like me to do something about it? And he says, yeah, that would be great. No problem, I tell him. So I get my boys to find me the tallest stake we've got, and we impale him right there and then. Oh, jeez, should have seen the look in his face. Anyway, he's way up there above all the other corpses, and I say to him, I guess you don't have to worry about the stench now, do you? It was so funny, because he was so much higher. It was hilarious. What, am I not telling this right?
After narrowly escaping the clutches of the Turkish army in 1462, Vlad the Impaler had asked Hungary's King Corvinus for aid. The king responded by throwing Vlad in jail. He probably thought Vlad was some kind of bloodthirsty maniac. But eventually, the kindly king freed Vlad, then gave him his throne back, and then let him marry his own sister. Sure, he's a bloodthirsty maniac, but he's our bloodthirsty maniac.
Vlad came to you as your vassal, seeking protection, and instead, you imprisoned him.
Oh, come on, Barbara. Dracula was a menace. All these horror stories with the impaling and the skinning and the disemboweling. I mean, what do I need? Do I need to hear this stuff? I mean, I'm like, oh, Vlad, please, I'm eating over here. Come on. I just figured I had a duty as a leader to protect the public from this kind of person.
And yet, you eventually gave him free reign of your palace and backed his claim to the Wallachian throne.
Well, after I got to know him a little, I came to realize Vlad wasn't at all what people made him out to be, Barbara. No, he was just, quirky.
Quirky?
Yeah. I'll give you an example, Barbara. Not that long ago, one of my police officers spotted a thief entering Vlad's home here in Visegrad, right? So he chased the thief into the house. Well, Vlad sees this, and what does he do? He guts the policeman. Oh, something about, oh, the guy should have knocked before entering the house of an important guy like me. I tried to get angry with him, but you know, what can I say? The guy makes me laugh. Oh, he's just quirky. Fairly violent, quirky.
You also allowed Vlad to marry your own sister.
Oh, hey, that was her idea. She heard about the nickname Vlad the Impaler, and I don't know.
Are you simply looking the other way at Prince Vlad's atrocities because he's agreed to serve Hungarian interests, namely killing lots of Turks?
No, of course not. I mean, who are we to judge a different society, a different people's way of life, just because it isn't the same as ours?
As long as they're on the same side as you?
Yeah.
So you're looking for a love charm?
No, not exactly. I already have my charm.
Okay, is it an incantation written out on a piece of paper by a wise man?
Oh, yeah, sure. The problem I had was in getting it to her.
Well, you've got a lot of choices there, Habib. For your best results, you want to fold it up inside an onion and roast it on her hearth.
Yeah.
Or burn the charm as the wick of her oil lamp. That's good.
Yeah.
Either way, when the charm burns, so will her passion.
But I think I've changed. I've mellowed.
Why?
Well, you know, I've had a long time to look back on what I've done, and when I started ruling, I was 17. I was just a kid.
If you could point to one thing in your wife that's changed you, what would it be?
Probably the death of my first wife.
She took her own life when you were being pursued by the Turkish forces led by your brother.
Conceited swine, bastard.
Do I sense some jealousy of Radu the Handsome there?
I'm not jealous. Wouldn't you say someone who calls himself Radu the Handsome was probably a little bit conceited?
Your wife said she'd rather die than be captured by the Turkish forces. And then she jumped out of the castle to her death.
Yeah. You know, you read about these kinds of tragedies, terrible things that happen to people, and you never believe that something like that can happen to you. And I'm saying, you know, why me?
Believe it or not, in parts of Romania today, Vlad the Impaler is remembered as a hero. He was responsible for over 100,000 deaths by some accounts, but since most were boyars or German merchants or Turks, the peasants really didn't mind. Vlad Dracula's third tour of duty on the throne was cut short. He was unable to continue serving as head of Wallachia without his head, which had been cut off by the Turks and impaled on a stake for all to see, proving that history, like that other Dracula, bites.
And if that's too difficult, you can place the charm in a threshold, her bed, her clothes.
See, that's what I did. I put it in her trousers.
Well, that should work. I don't see the problem.
Well, I made a little mistake. They were her brother's trousers.